Okay, so this week our group has chapter 8 on teacher freedoms. So rights are important for everyone in the school. Students have rights, teachers have rights, administration has rights, parents have rights. All throughout the school there are rights. So it's important that when teachers obtain employment, they make sure that their rights are being respected by the administration. Throughout this chapter, it talks about different freedoms that are important for schools to uphold. Substantive and procedural concerns, freedom of expression, speech outside the school environment, academic freedom, usage of social media, freedom of association and politics, dress, religion, and FMLA. So we are going to start with substantive and procedural considerations. So the procedural due process is the state may not deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process law. So this is if a teacher, the teacher must get an opportunity to be heard and be heard in a fair manner. So if that's having, if they have concerns with students, if they have concerns with administration, there should always be someone that they can go to for their concerns, and that they're heard out on those concerns, and that there's a solution if possible for those concerns. If this doesn't occur, it does violate the teacher's constitutional rights. We can go to the next slide. It also goes into that they must have valid objective when it intends to deprive a teacher of that life, liberty, or property, and the means used must be reasonably calculated to achieve its objective. So all procedural requirements must be met for this to happen. Freedom of expression. So teachers have rights to freedom of expression within limits. So they have to think of things like material disruption. So examples of that could be interference with rights of others, speech that creates a negative impact on the school or the administration. So they have to be careful on that freedom of expression, that it doesn't not necessarily offend somebody, but it doesn't overstep boundaries that teachers have. There was a case on this. So Connick versus Myers was a petition that went around that was talking about the office and the functioning of the office. This case did not receive First Amendment protection because it was not a public concern. This was more of an internal concern and personal matters of the school. We can go to the next one. And then the next one. Sorry, I spoke a little fast in the next one. All right, perfect. Speech outside the school environment. So teachers do, like I said, have First Amendment rights outside of the school environment. So they're going to have their personal opinions. They can go, they can fight for those personal amendments. They can speak on them, but they have to be able to think of, they are a teacher. So you have to have those boundaries. Everything that you do outside of school reflects the school, because people in your community know that you're a teacher. So you have to have that limited right to freedom of expression. When a teacher is, so this is according to the book, when a teacher is expressing such speech, a teacher should preface his or her comments by indicating that he or she is speaking as a private citizen rather than employee of the board. So when they're out there and they're talking about something they're very passionate about, then they need to make sure that people know they're not speaking for the school, they're speaking for their personal time. This allows people to know that the teacher's stance is not in the position of the school district and it's personal. Some other things that go along with that is that teachers do have reasonable restrictions. Teachers should always be professional in and out of the classroom. They cannot, when they are showing those, when they are, they're out in the community and they're talking about the things that they're expressive about, they cannot harm another's reputation. So they can't go out in the community and talk about their administration or talk about another teacher. They still have to keep that boundary as a teacher. And this is for verbal or written speeches. So if you write to the newspaper, you also have to keep these in consideration, as well as if you're going out and talking. A couple of the cases that have been brought up for this is the Pickering case was established the limits on freedom of speech rights by school personnel. This was in Illinois. A teacher was dismissed from his position by the Board of Education because of the connection with the local newspaper. What he did was he sent in a piece of writing from his position by the Board of Education because so it was talking critical of the school administration and tax funds raised by the school. It did violate the interests of the school. It wasn't personal. It was talking about the school. And so the Supreme Court held for Pickering, which was the absent proof of false statement knowingly or recklessly made by him, a teacher's exercise of his rights to speak on the issue of a public importance may not furnish the basis of his dismissal from public employment. A couple of victories for non-public school is teachers can only be disciplined if disrupted superior subordinate relationships or resulted of loyalty or confidentiality. And then the speech created disruption of a material or that affects the operation of the school. So if it, like it said before, if it talks badly about the administration, if it talks badly about teachers or the school or something that's happening in the school, that needs to be dealt with within the school, which is going and talking to the principal or going up that ladder of command to talk about that rather than taking it to the media as a teacher. So all of this goes right into that academic freedom because we're talking about teacher freedoms and how teachers have that freedom of expression, which goes right into that academic freedom.
Okay. Okay, so academic freedom. So this was originated in the German universities originally during the 19th century. And this was basically the purpose was to allow professors to teach any subject in which they just deemed educationally appropriate. Academic freedom does allow students and teachers in academic facilities to pursue knowledge and wherever that may lead. So those discussions and topics, research, whatever that leads into. Academic freedom is more common in the higher education, and this allows teachers, students freedom to express, their philosophies, intellectual commitments. Academic freedom in teaching means the faculty members can, teach. It doesn't give them the ability to teach whatever, talk about whatever they want to without, having those. Sorry, guys, I lost my spot. However, the rights to academic freedom doesn't mean that a teacher has the right to harass or intimidate, ridicule, or impose their personal views on students. So it doesn't protect teachers necessarily from consequences for professional misconduct. If there's proof or if an offense did occur, or cover a teacher if they break the law. So academic freedom does give teachers the right to fair treatment and due process if disciplinary action is taken. So, and then teachers, should be certain that topic, subject matter that's discussed in the classroom is within the scope of the student's intellectual as well as their social maturity level. Within the public school system. So teachers, are required to teach content in which they are in fact certified in teaching or assigned to teach. So controversial, the material that's unrelated to the subject or the subject taught is inappropriate based on the content, it will not be supported by the courts. So this did hold true. The case that it refers to in the book is the Fowler case, in which a tenured teacher actually was charged for insubordination and conduct unbecoming of a teacher because she decided to show an R-rated movie, which was Pink Floyd's The Wall, to a group of high school students that obviously showed nudity and violence and things of that nature. So the teacher was obviously unfamiliar with this movie, decided to play it in the classroom. She left the class unattended multiple times. She did ask the students to edit parts that, were inappropriate. The teacher also testified that even though she had not seen this movie, she thought that it did have significant value, but the school board obviously viewed this and viewed the edited version of the movie and voted unanimously to terminate this teacher. It was recognized by the courts that this teacher, Fowler, was entitled to a First Amendment protection. However, was ruled that her conduct in showing the movie under the circumstances did not constitute as expression that was protected by the First Amendment. So, and then majority of what's taught in public schools is influenced by the state and local board curriculum policies and guidelines. And teachers definitely need to be mindful of this. They may not use their classrooms as a means to promote any personal or political agendas. Teachers also may not claim First Amendment protection, when they make these damaging or inappropriate statements. And then on the next slide,
freedom of association.
So the last, sorry, I'm on the last one. I talked kind of fast. Since the public school teachers teach children of tender years, I'm on that one. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
No, I was talking kind of fast. So again, ensuring that topics and discussions are appropriate, given the age and maturity level of students and teaching what they're certified in. But on top of that, whether you're tenured or non-tenured, teachers don't have the ability to deviate from the school's mission or vision or behavioral expectations. And they cannot operate on their own terms. They are not permitted to prescribed course content, and academic freedom doesn't allow teachers to ignore or omit the content from that prescribed curriculum. So some behaviors that aren't protected by academic freedom would also include like shouting at coworkers, deframing superiors, failing to follow prescribed duties, responsibilities, things of that nature. So the district and school mission, philosophy, and culture is the utmost importance. And then I kind of want to talk a little bit, this isn't on the slide, but just about the teacher use of social media. So of course, teachers can and do use Facebook, Instagram, different social media sites, which of course they are able to do that, freedom of speech and whatnot. But teachers, as far as expressing their views outside the classroom, as Taylor had mentioned before, making sure that you're speaking from that personal rather than that teacher perspective is really important for people in the community to know. But posting things on Facebook, whether it be inappropriate, pictures, or if you're writing about political views or whatnot, is obviously not something something teachers need to definitely be mindful of, because people in the community do see you as a role model. That's kind of your job as a teacher to kind of refrain from using social media as an outlet to express your views or to post pictures. I mean, if it's inappropriate for the classroom, it's probably inappropriate for social media. So just kind of a rule to keep in mind, because teachers have been terminated or have been asked to resign due to inappropriate pictures on Facebook. So it's just important to remember that you are a role model no matter where you go. Social media is included in that. So another thing is avoiding just being friends with students on social media. There are states like Ohio, Florida, Missouri that have enforced policies too, that basically they prefer that the policy basically states that you will use a district computer or telephone system to communicate with students. So and teachers have also been disciplined for using cell phones inappropriately. So again, just being mindful of that communication with students as well. Okay.
And then that kind of ties right into the freedom of association, where the First Amendment guarantees that citizens are able to peacefully assemble and associate with whoever they want. And obviously teachers, for the most part, are citizens, so they get that same amendment right. And on the next slide, you'll see that actually in the past, freedom of association was always not recognized by districts. A couple examples were colored and white teachers were forbidden from socializing. If you were in the NAACP or the KKK, it was pretty much fatal to your career. Involvement in any organized labor such as teachers unions, was pretty bad for you. It led to a bunch of questionable treatments such as demotions, transfers, non-renewals, and even sometimes terminations. There was a case inside of Missouri where a school district did not renew 3 probationary teachers due to them advocating for higher teacher salaries and their association with the Missouri National Teachers Association. The court ended up ruling that this was a violation of their First Amendment right and their freedom of association, and awarded the teachers back their positions and compensation. The district ended up appealing that, and then the higher court even agreed with the lower court again and increased the compensation. So it kind of backfired on the district then. Ever since then, especially since the 1960s, there's been a trend towards the courts giving teachers more and more freedom in their personal lives so that you can join teachers unions, professional organizations, have a leadership role there, campaign for membership. And I know we've all seen NISA probably campaigning for membership at our school districts. Also negotiate with the school board so that you are able to get as best conditions as you can without fear of reprisal from the school district. As long as all of that association does not reduce your effectiveness as a district employee, you can do whatever you want. You can even run for public office as well as or campaign for a candidate. You just may have to request time off as long as you do that. Membership in subversive organizations. The Supreme Court said that membership in these organizations is not sufficient enough to justify getting rid of a teacher. So like membership in the KKK or membership in the NAACP or any other organization is not really grounds for dismissal. They had to have demonstrated that they actually participated in any unlawful event, which sometimes can be pretty hard to prove. A case that kind of goes along with that is Elf Brandt v. Russell, which indicated those who join an organization but do not share its unlawful purposes can still serve as public employees. There was also an oath to the state inside of Arizona that a teacher refused to take, and because of that, they ended up getting rid of her. And the courts found that that was against her constitutional rights as well. Then we go to political rights. Again, you can have whatever political beliefs you want as long as you don't advocate for them inside of the school, and as long as you do those political activities outside of school time and outside of district time, or take your own personal time to do it, it is perfectly fine. It's not unconstitutional. As long as it's all legal and everything like that, you're able to have your own political beliefs. If you go to the next slide again, the right to hold office, you were able to hold public office as long as you participate in legal political activities. Generally speaking, any public official is prohibited from using their office for personal or political gain. So as long as you don't campaign inside of the school and you're campaigning outside of school hours and take time off if you need to campaign during the school day, it's perfectly fine. There was a state case, and I think it's Minnelli v. State inside of Oregon, where the district held that it was invalid, or there was an invalid state law that prohibited public employees from running for political office, and the court ruled that the state had no authority to limit the First Amendment rights of teachers. So again, as long as it doesn't affect your district responsibilities, you are perfectly fine to run for office as long as you continue being an effective employee. And then again, if you are permitted to hold a public office, teachers You just can't use your office to or your position for personal gain in politics. And you may, based on school board policy, be required to take a leave of absence if you're planning on doing anything during the school day. You just can't be dismissed for being a candidate. And then the right to campaign, again, is afforded to teachers and other employees. Still recognize being a teacher is your first and most important job. As long as you don't campaign during the school day or you take days off like you need to, you're again able to participate in politics as much as you want.
Okay, dress and grooming. This is one that, I don't know, it's always kind of been a thing for our school. For instance, we are required to wear like no blue jeans. It's kind of funny because you can have colored jeans and you can have dress pants. You just can't have blue jeans, which I always said that's kind of, colorist against blue. But and then a collared shirt or a nice shirt. We don't have to wear ties. One thing we do though is on some days when we host track meets or stuff like that, then the superintendent says, hey, you guys can wear jeans today. Or if it's I Love Public Schools Day, if you wear your I Love Public School shirt, then you can wear jeans that day. So they kind of use that for us. Do you guys have anything similar with your dress codes or?
So our dress code, so we used to be able to wear colored jeans, but then somebody actually just made the point that you did and said, well, if women can wear colored jeans, then why can't men wear jeans? So this year we were actually told there's no jeans period. That's the colored jeans, anything. So we had to wear the nice slacks or dresses all the time now. So that just changed this year.
So that one backfired and went the opposite direction, huh?
It did, yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, we have things like on Fridays, we can pay $3 to this organization to wear jeans, or if you're a coach, then on the days that you have games, you can wear, the polo shirt and then the khakis or whatever. They're okay with that.
Yeah.
At our district, we I feel like we're pretty fortunate where we can wear jeans every Friday, but our principal is really great about like sometimes during the week, she's like, oh, it's a Norris Titans day, so wear a Norris t-shirt and jeans, or we can wear like dressy shorts. I feel like our PE teacher and our art teacher are wearing, they're males, but they're wearing shorts all the time. So I feel like ours is pretty lenient. It's gotten more lenient, I should say, in the elementary building. And maybe that's why, because we're in an elementary and lots of things happen in an elementary building. But so yeah, I feel like we're pretty fortunate. And as far as dress code, like, of course, it has to be appropriate, like no spaghetti straps or, short dresses or skirts. But the professional joggers is kind of a thing now where it's, they look, you can dress them up or dress them down. So that's kind of a thing that a lot of teachers know. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty lenient at my district.
Yeah, at the end of last year, I bought a bunch of professional joggers and wore them like every single day. So pretty fortunate that my districts allow that. I know jeans days, it kind of depends on the building you're in. In our district, I know the elementary, it was like every Friday. The middle school, they were lucky to get 2 or 3 for the entire school year, just because of the administration. The I Love Public School Days, like you said, we get to do those. If you're a coach, like for me, I'm a cross country and track coach. On those days, I get to wear just my track pants or my shorts or whatever I'm going to wear to the meet. So that's pretty nice. But other than that, it's pretty much exactly like you said, where it's slacks and collared shirts or colored jeans in our district.
I also feel like, sorry, I'm just going to say a benefit of COVID was when we didn't have any parents come into the building for almost 2 years. It was kind of nice because it was very lenient then. I don't know if you guys had that experience or not, but since you didn't, since we didn't see any parents and we were doing so many Zooms, our admin were pretty just wear jeans if you want. But yeah,
we do that when we have like if we have teacher work days or something and there's not going to be any students or parents around, it's lenient. The neat thing though is I think as administrators, it seems like the courts have generally backed up the administrators on their policies for, the school board and the superintendents and whatever, because teacher appearance has so much to do with the educational process. Like you guys have all talked about earlier, we're as teachers expected to be, the public has a certain expectation of us. And so our dress kind of helps maintain that. So the courts generally have been behind us on, or have been behind administrators on that. What's not settled necessarily is the degree of constitutional protection teachers get to receive. So we, there's no constitutional line that says jeans are okay on Fridays, but not any other day of the week or something like that. So it's just not really black and white. It's kind of district to district. However, if it affects the workings of the school, then obviously, and the community mores and community standards, if it's different. For instance, I'm from a small town. We've lived all over the country, all over the world. So I've definitely been in places like Southern California. Standards are completely different there. I'm sure Omaha standards are different or expectations are different. So as long as we're not violating those, the schools are usually or the courts usually back up the administration, and the administration usually is pretty lenient if we're not breaking any of those mores and standards. That slide went on there twice. All right, right to privacy. Okay, so typically teachers enjoy a measure of privacy in their personal lives. So that is to the extent that they don't violate the integrity of the community or render the teacher ineffective in performing professional duties. Okay, so right again with what we were saying with the community, what kind of privacy we have to act on our own. When you talked about the political involvement, personal involvement in religious activities, stuff like that, that's fine. And then the school generally doesn't have a right to invade our privacy and as teachers in any way. This is one that's obviously changed over the past quite a few decades. Unwed pregnant teachers. This day and age, it almost makes my hackles rise to think that would ever even be an issue. But if you look back at the 60s and 70s, even within a community, especially like a small community, if all of a sudden you had a single unwed woman and she got pregnant, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, so the way schools treated that has obviously differed a lot from then to now. I have not had this happen or had to experience this in any of my schools. Have any of you guys experienced this? And it should be transparent, as no different than any other pregnancy in school.
I know one of my coworkers the last 2 years has been pregnant twice, and she's unwed. She's actually just about to get married, so they were pretty lenient with her about that. Yeah,
and it should be completely transparent this day and age. But obviously during the 70s and 80s, it was a different case. Also, with regards to the rights you receive as going to be a mother, going to be a father, something like that. Obviously, in the past, the courts also considered overall performance record and actions on students and how the classroom's going and stuff like that. I don't know. Nowadays, I don't feel like that's even. It almost seems like it was used as a way to completely review the teacher's performance, like a doorway in. I don't even think that would be the case today. So it's changed a lot. And again, community standards and the mores of the community, how it affects those. Okay, to religious freedom. Teachers obviously possess religious rights. The trick here is you just have to remain neutral in the classroom and when you're representing the school in any way. So we've talked about a bunch in this case. Personally, when I'm in a classroom, kind of one of my challenges is that by the end of the year, we'll have talked about quite a few, we do current events and stuff like that, quite a few political issues, quite a few of these personal controversial issues we talk about and make arguments about the death penalty or capital punishment and stuff like that. And my goal is at the end of the year, my students have no idea where I stand on any of those issues. That's kind of like a personal goal and a challenge that I take on. And I'll even take the devil's advocate side and argue against them, but I don't want to do it in a way. I want to do it equally both ways when it's needed so that they know they can't figure out where I stand on that. And I feel like that keeps me safe as a teacher, and doesn't bias any of their opinions, because we're not there to change their opinions. We're there to open their minds and make sure they're able to see both sides. So with all of these things, and religious freedom is a perfect example, is that we stay unbiased and our students aren't affected, our opinions aren't affected or driven by our actions. All right, this is what I was talking about, Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, passed in 1993, and this outlines what employers are required to give the employees, okay, and list them out here. So birth care for the newborn child of the employee, placement with the employee of a son or daughter of adoption or foster care. So this is one that I really wasn't clear on until I read all this, and we treat that the same as we would treat a newborn child. Caring for immediate family member for a serious health condition, medical leave, and employees. So employers with 50 or more employees are covered by this act. So with that, I want to go back to that. Here it is. Employee and eligible employees, one who's been employed for the last 12 months or at least 1,250 hours over the previous 12 months. I know this has come into play also with, we have a thing where when we have to keep track of our extra duty hours. Do you guys have to keep track of those ever? And so if it's anything outside of our normal workday, we're supposed to track what it is, how many hours we participate in that, and it plays into some of these eligibility things. I think for a full-time teacher, it's never an issue because we automatically have all of the hours, but for some of our paras or part-time help, it could determine whether they're eligible or not. And then the employee does get to elect to use, or the employer to require the employee to use accrued paid leaves. So we, different districts pool or bank their vacation or sick days in certain ways. And so sometimes employers have that worked into how the leave is used. All right. Anything else from anyone else? Figure out how to